Welcome back to Draft Week here at the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and we are continuing our series of the individual prospect cheat sheets. Last time I did the wide receivers. I skipped over tight ends. I'm probably going to push them even later down the road because I still have to do a couple more watches of that. That's probably my weakest position group right now. But what is not one of my weaker position groups is the offensive tackles. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see on my screen right now I have the Dynasty Index offensive tackle page opened up. I am in charge of doing the offensive line, and these tackles, I have personally scouted all 21 of them. I still probably going to do a handful more before the draft is actually here. Once I get all these recordings out of the way, I'm going to be diving back into some more. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can probably get my updates on there. I'll probably update with every single time I get one done. So yeah, go follow me on Twitter, the Weekly Huddle. And other than that, yeah, shout out to Kill Pro for allowing me to come on here and help him out with this. And let's just get right into it. We've got a speed run 21 guys in about 30 minutes. So starting out with O-tackle number 1, Evan Neal with an 88.5 grade. Evan Neal, you can't really poke holes in his game. He's 6'7", 360, so he's got the frame. He brings the power that comes along with that frame. He's a great mover for somebody who is that large and that heavy. I'm really shocked how well he can move. He's able to reach the outside shoulder, get back on deep sets, and overall just how, Alabama offensive tackles, they've been the high prize of the class with, going back to Jedrick Wills and things like that. You can see all these players who come out and are top 10 picks out of Alabama because that's just the pedigree. And Evan Neal is someone who brings that. And I think that I think the Jags should either go him or Thibodeau at number 1. Even though they brought back Cam Robinson, you can grab Evan Neal. And then he played right guard in 2019. I think that was his freshman year. Then in 2020, when Tua was the starter, I'm sorry. Yeah. Am I getting my years mixed up? All I know is he played right guard his first year he started, and then he played right tackle, and then switched over to left tackle. So he has both position flexibility inside and out, and left to right side. So I think if you're the Jags, you can draft him, and if you don't want him at either tackle spot because you franchise tagged or have like Walker Little or something that you're really confident in, which I think Evan Neal's better than Walker Little, and I really liked Walker Little last year. You can play him at guard until Cam Robinson's gone, another Alabama offensive tackle there. Or you can put him at tackle and just try to. With him, you can get your best 5 out there. So I feel like he shouldn't be discounted as the guy who could still go number 1 overall to the Jags despite their offseason moves. Number 2, this is kind of controversial. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't argue with me that Evan Neal number 1. They might have someone like Ike Mekwonu there and Evan Neal 2, but so they can understand why Neal would be number 1. But my number 2 is Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa, the left tackle there. 6'7", 329. I have an 86.5 overall grade on him. He's up there, if he's not better than Ike Mekwonu as a run blocker. I know he faced lower competition than Kwonu did, but he's just so nasty. He buries people on every single play. I love his tenacity. I love his attitude. As a pass protector, he's gotten a lot better. He used to play with too high of a pad level and used to be able to get driven back with his anchor not being that great. But this season, that was in 2020 and 2021, he really improved there. His hands, the punch that comes with the run game is still there in the passing game. The only real knock I have on his game is he can get caught, with some penalties. He always plays on the edge, so you're always going to get that unnecessary roughness penalty, but sometimes his technique can get a little out of hand, and he will get like a couple holding penalties here or there from just trying to body a guy in pass pro. So maybe an RPO-heavy system or just a year of just suffering through that while he works on his hand technique will be what he needs. But I think the rest of his game is well-rounded, and I love his attitude towards the game. Plus, I think he's a natural fit at tackle, unlike someone like Ike Mekwonu, who I could see failing outside and then moving back inside. But we'll get to him in a second. Offensive tackle 3. It's a tie between 3 and 4 grade-wise, so you can flip these two however you want. But I personally have at number 3 Charles Cross. Charles Cross is the most natural pass protecting tackle we've seen in quite a while. I think he can come in and be an instant starter, mostly at left tackle. I don't think he's got the position versatility to play inside or out despite his lack of height. But yeah, he's so smooth. He's so technically refined at tackle. He's a great mover, even laterally. So if you want to run like a zone scheme, I think he's not that bad of a run blocker in a zone scheme just because he moves so well. People will be a little meh about his power going forward, but I think that's a little underrated for him, specifically because his leg drive is pretty good. So even though he doesn't have like the pop in his hands or the upper body strength that other guys have, he can still get some push with his legs. But you can also just not put him in a power scheme. And if you're a team that wants to pass the ball a lot, but when they want to run the ball, they want to stretch it laterally, let the running back either cut up or get to the edge. You can get Charles Cross, and he'd be a very effective run blocker for you in that system. All right. In the fourth spot, somebody I was low on until just recently, and I'm still lower than most people are, Ikem Ekwonu. Former guard turned tackle for NC State. He is a nasty run blocker. I will give you that. And when he played guard, he had this tendency of leaning on defenders in pass pro, which shows up occasionally in his pass pro and when I was at tackle. It's better now though. His length is like on the borderline of tackle guy, but I think he would pass. I think if you're drafting him, you're definitely drafting him as a run blocker first and not a pass blocker. And I think that's where his deficiency is coming in, is as a pass blocker immediately day one. He can grow into it at the NFL level sooner rather than later. But I think with how far back he is in pass blocking pro compared to the top three guys, I think that's what brings him down. And again, he's tied with Charles Cross just because his run blocking makes up for a majority of that. But I think that if you are a team that wants to go out there and sling the ball 40 times a game, but also have a power run blocking kind of scheme, Penning is probably your better bet right now, just because he's more naturally fit at left tackle. Ikem Ekwonu is still learning a little bit at the left tackle positioning. Like I said, even though I think he maybe could fail and go out and go inside the guard, he could be a Pro Bowler at guard as well. So you're not going to get a bad offensive lineman when you get Ekwonu. I just don't know if he's going to be an offensive tackle at the next level consistently. Like, he could be out there and be fine, but if you want him to be like a Pro Bowl caliber kind of player, he might fit best at guard. All right, this is a total sleeper. No one is talking about this guy, offensive tackle 5 with an 83.5 grade. Andrew Stuber, right tackle out of Michigan. He's versatile. He played guard at the Senior Bowl. I didn't really like his anchor at guard when I watched the Senior Bowl practices, so I think his best position is out at tackle still. He's not the best mover. He's got some good power. He's got some good tenacity. He comes from the smart Michigan system, so he knows how to pick up blitzes. His technique is refined. I think as a technical right tackle who's going to be good in pass war for you and can still get some move in the run game, I think Stuber is good. He doesn't have the ceiling as the rest of the guys above him or even below him, but I think his floor is pretty good, and if you really think you can fix his anchor issue on the inside, you can move him into guard at the same time. So yeah, big sleeper for me, big time sleeper. Next up at number 6 with an 81.5 grade, so a bit of a jump here, is Bernhard Raymond, tackle from Central Michigan. He is a converted rugby player, and you can see the rawness on his film where he has all the athleticism in the world combined with the size, 6'7", 305. And that 305 is definitely indicative of his movement skill there. He can move really well for his size. But yeah, he is very new to the position, very new to football in general. So if you're going to grab him, it's going to be more of a working project. You know, if you start him right away, you're going to have to live with some of the mess ups technically wise. And you're going to give up a few sacks his rookie year. But I think he'll have a similar career path to who's the offensive tackle from UCLA for the Raiders? No, I can't remember his name. But yeah, like somebody like that who Colton Miller. He was very athletic coming out, and when he came in, he had a rough few seasons, and then he eventually developed into like a first round caliber offensive tackle, which he was. And I don't think Raymond has the ceiling or will match what Colton Miller did. Plus, he's a little bit older as a prospect. I think he's going to be 25. But I think his ceiling is still pretty good. And even though he's 25, tackle's been playing real late into the careers as of late, like Jason Peters, Andrew Whitworth, those kind of guys. So I think with his athleticism and size, you can bring him in and then have that mask and scheme up things where you don't have to have him take these traditional pass sets where he's going to get a little bit exposed by NFL pass rushers. Nicholas Petit-Frere had a lot of first-round buzz heading into the season, and I was never there with him. I think he finally settled down to where I originally had him, which is a round 2 guy, 80 overall grade. Has some versatility. He played, I believe, he was either right tackle or right guard for Ohio State. And then while Thayer Mumford played left tackle, and then he finally kicked out to left tackle. And that's what they kind of had going on this year. I know there was a little bit of mixing around while they were doing that, but as a tackle guy, he's a great athlete. I think he has a great get-off, and his movement skills are pretty good up there. They're probably I wouldn't say they're best in this class, but I can't grade them any higher than I have them graded because they're just that good on film. And I think he has that attitude where, as a run blocker and as a pass blocker, he's going to want to bury you and not let you get to his quarterback. And I think that's what you want in NFL offensive tackles. You don't want guys who will, if they have the opportunity to bury a guy, just let him go on the ground and get back up and continue rushing. You want him to lay on top of him and just end him. I think he does bring good power for an offensive tackle. Like, I think as a guard, he might be lacking a little bit, especially that shows up with his 315 weight. But as an offensive tackle against these 250-pound edge rushers, I think he can get some good power and some good push, especially he uses his length well, but his hand placement at times can get a little outside. Isn't really the best. Doesn't really have a punch, and his foot technique, I think he can get crossed up a little bit with speed. So he needs to just get acclimated to that more, and maybe even be in an RPO heavy system where he can just use his side shuffle kind of thing, which is why they had him potentially at guard or at the right tackle spot originally, because they don't really like him taking these deep traditional pass sets, which he did some more now this season, but I think an NFL team wants to mask that initially anyway, while they teach him to get better with the speed. They could run that kind of stuff, and the team that runs that kind of stuff may be better for him overall. Next up, Max Mitchell at 8. I know a lot of people fell off of him pretty hard after the Senior Bowl, but the potential I've seen with him, Max Mitchell was a tight end, and he put on like 70 pounds or like 60 pounds since he came to Louisiana, and every year he's been better and better. People were kind of upset with how his anchor was, which I can see why, and his power because he's only 299. But like I said, every year he's put on like 10 to 20 pounds, and he's gotten better. I can't see why an NFL team that has a good weight staff and good nutritional staff who can grab him and think, oh, we can add another 10 pounds to his frame, get him up to 309, and he'll be perfectly fine. He is the best mover, probably, of this like second-tier lineman, if not overall. And that may be because of his lightweight, but I think it's just overall he's just a great athlete. And I think adding 10 pounds to that won't affect his lateral mobility all that much. His get-off is great. I don't actually hate his technique in pass pro. It's not the worst. I think that he can come out and be a day one starter, especially for a team that wants a moving pocket and things like that. I think he just needs more time to acclimate to being an offensive tackle and getting up there in weight. And maybe the first year while he's transitioning weights, like if he adds 10 pounds in the offseason after getting drafted, he may need to learn to work with his new body and have to get used to that. But once he does get that, I think he'll be able to really come to his own and have one of the higher upsides in this draft class. Kellen Diesch out of Arizona State. He's a good, decent all-around tackle. I think he's just technically sound. He's not like the highest kind of ceiling. He doesn't really have the position versatility you'd like. He's not athletically amazing, which again lowers his ceiling. But I think as somebody who comes in, he can just be a starter, come out there, be solid for you for a couple seasons. Maybe he can be someone you would look to upgrade on because, like I said, he doesn't have the highest ceiling. So what you get out of the draft is probably going to be what you get for his entire career. So I think like he's just like a solid guy. If you have a real big hole on your tackle spot and you missed out on day one, you could grab Diesch in round 2 or round 3 and have a average to slightly below average starter for the next 3 years while you try to figure it out, or grab somebody in the first round and then move him around. So I think that he's somebody that if you're a team that's like hit the panic button, oh no, we need to get a tackle, but we missed out in the first round, you can go grab Diesch and you'll be happy with that, with his floor come next season, like his rookie season. Sean Ryan, he's a tackle/guard kind of guy. I think he's in the same situation as the next guy, Daniel Falele. They're only half a point apart, 76 and 75.5. Falele's got the length. I'm just going to combine two of them. They both are bigger bodied guys, and they played right tackle. I think Ryan played left tackle mostly, but he would get flexed over to right tackle in like these offsetting alignments. So he has experience playing both sides of the line, and I think both of them, Falele less because of his height, but Sean Ryan definitely can move to guard and be like one of those bully kind of blockers, like a Darian Kennard kind of guy. But I think because he fit better at tackle than Kennard did, he could play right tackle for a power system like Oakland or something like that, or like a New England. And same thing with Falele is I think despite him not being able to come to guard because of his height, they both have great power. They have great size. They're just big guys with strong hands, and even though they're a little less athletic than you like, their technique's not the worst. And I think a team with if you want Falele at tackle, RPO is probably your way to go, just because that's what his footwork was accustomed to in Minnesota. He wasn't good with the deep sets. And Sean Ryan isn't that athletic to be able to get down there, which is either moving to guard or running an RPO system, I think, for both of these guys. Falele is more restrictive. That's why I have him graded a little less, because I don't think he can move to guard. You're going to have to specifically run him in an RPO system because he's not going to have that movement skills to get those deep drops. So both right tackle prospects, I think, and Ryan has more versatility than Falele does. So to take your pick here, I kind of like Ryan more just because of that versatility, but at the same time, Falele is a monster, 6'9", 380. Maybe if he loses like another 10, 20 pounds, he could move a little better. But yeah, I think they both bring a similar skill set, just with one has more versatility than the other, while the other one brings more length. Cade Mays, another one of my sleepers. I'm a big fan of Cade Mays. He was a 5-star recruit for Georgia, and then couldn't get playing time there, so he went over to Tennessee, and he shows the athleticism really well. He has a great get off. He's good laterally, but I think he's better as a vertical, getting up to like the linebackers, things like that. They're trying to reach somebody on the outside, which also makes me think he could be a good guard, because despite him not being able to reach like quicker, faster defensive ends, as a guy who could reach a D-tackle who's slower off the ball than he is, I think that'd work better. He's very raw technical-wise, which is why he's in round 4. He's kind of the opposite of a guy we'll get to later in Rasheed Walker, where he has this great athletic upside. He was a 5-star recruit. He's got all the talent in the world. He likes to bury guys, especially at the next level with these smaller defenders. If he can get up vertically up to the linebackers and get his hands on them, he can drive them into the ground. I think his hand technique isn't great. He lets guys slip off his blocks a little bit, and he doesn't stay on the inside leverage entirely. But I think as somebody who could come in and be that kind of athletic tackle / guard prospect for you, that if you don't want him, he can be your like a swing tackle for a little bit before he moves into maybe a guard spot first, or you put him at tackle and let him fail inside to guard. I think that'd be the thing you can go with, because he is so athletic. You could try him out at tackle first, and then if it's failing, or if you want to run a more zone system where you got to reach guys, or have your guards, shuffle along with the tackles before moving up to the next level, I think that's somewhere Cade Mays could excel. But right now, I think he's a tackle coming into the league first before moving into guard, where his good athleticism for a tackle in the SEC could be good athleticism for a guard in the NFL. So that's where I am with Cade Mays, one of my more favorite guys. Abraham Lucas for Washington State. He is kind of like who's the tackle the Eagles drafted from Washington State? Oh, what's his name? He couldn't get any play time because he was hurt, but like he was such a natural pass protector, and like you get that with most Washington State offensive linemen. So here we are with another longer, not like the super tall, but like he's got some length. He's got NFL size for a tackle. Very smooth pass protector, right tackle kind of guy. Doesn't really have a lot of upside in the run game, especially power-wise. I think he could reach some guys on the outside or get up to the linebacker level and just get in their way and wall them off. But as somebody who comes in, if you want to throw the ball 45, if you're like the Chargers and you need a right tackle who can just block while you throw the ball 45 times a game and then have some outside runs with Austin Eckler, I think Abraham Lucas is a guy you could grab in the 4th round or 3rd round, and he'd come in and he'd be perfectly fine for what you're trying to schematically do. Moving down to number 14, Rasheed Walker, my 3rd sleeper in this draft class, and my final one for so far. He's a guy for Penn State. He was their left tackle. I think athletically, limited. He's not the best at get off, not the best in space, like especially on screenplays and things like that. It really shows up. But technically, great. He has some of the best tape and some of the worst tape on film of any of these players, because he'll come out and have these true pass sets. He can get his athleticism in deep drops is hit or miss. Like he'll have great plays and then not great plays, like I'm saying. But his hand technique and foot technique overall, I think, is a big plus. Especially his hand technique is a plus thing. His ability to move laterally and get out in space is not his best thing, though. He's kind of stiff. I think as somebody who, if you want to bring somebody in who can be a stopgap starter, and then as a reliable backup for like 10 plus years in the NFL, whether it's on one team or bouncing around, you can bring him in and he can be a guy that like you won't have to worry about if your starter goes down of drop off in pass protection or run blocking, things like that. Like, yeah, more athletic, like a Myles Garrett or Von Miller might mess him up because he's not going to be able to athletically match with them. But if you have guys who have like a mediocre secondary pass rusher, he can come in and stop them. Now we have Braxton Jones, kind of a smaller school prospect out of southern Utah. He's got a bunch of good length. He plays with really good length, and he's got great foot. Like, you always see these guys from like smaller schools who are just put out a tackle because they can move the best laterally, whether it's laterally or vertically, and then they're just bigger. He actually has some, but their technique is kind of meh. He actually has some of the best technique foot-wise in this class. He's able to just stay square with the line of scrimmage, doesn't get crossed up with speed, even though he didn't face that much speed in school. Which, even then, again, these small schools, they put their smaller, faster guys on the edges of the interior, so you could say that he was challenged that a little bit. But yeah, his foot technique was flawless. I never saw him mess up once, especially with like getting crossed up or clicking his heels or anything like that. He's very technically refined. He's got the edge, and he's going to have that chip on his shoulder from being from a smaller school. And I think, like I said, he plays with great length, and he's got some good power in the run blocking. But outside of that, I think he doesn't really fit well anywhere else other than like tackle, and he played a lot of left tackle, so I don't know if he can really fit to slide over to the right, but there's potential for him to do so. Even though his technique is great, he's not the best mover, especially off the ball or moving laterally. I think he's going to have to be someone who's in like a power system or an RPO system where he's not asked to move super fast, super far quickly. And I think working on his center of gravity, or maybe adding a pound or two, not a pound or two, like 5 to 10 pounds on his frame to help out with his anchor, could help out. With him getting blown back, because when some of the interior defensive line would stunt across to his face, he would not be able to hold up real well anchor-wise. So he's got work in progress. He's got some good points where, like, maybe he'd be a day one starter, but at the same time, it's like he's got these issues that maybe he needs to get coached up on, especially with like his center of gravity, getting his ass down to keep his anchor good. That you wouldn't want to start him right away, especially from going from jumping from such a small school to starter. I think he has a pathway to start from the skills he has, but again, his ceiling's limited. I think his best way for him to become a starter is to be that technical guy, which would involve getting his hands better and just overall identifying blitzes and things like that, so that way he doesn't really have an issue with any of the high-level, high-speed NFL game and just be able to rely solely on his technique to one-on-one match up with a guy. Bamadele Olasani, I think is his name, how you say it, from Utah. In the mold of like the Daniel Faleles of the world, where he's a big guy, like how much does he weigh? 348, 6'7", 348. That I think, but he doesn't really carry it all that well. He's not the best mover. He's got the power and the length in his arms for being 6'7". I just think his foot technique is not that great. He doesn't get a lot of drive with his legs. He's a very slow foot mover. So I think he'll get challenged with passing. Passed by speed rushers and things like that. I think you have to play him in an RPO system if you want to be offensive tackle. It has to be an RPO system. So I think he's very limited where you can go. He's probably just a guy you want to bet on the size with, and hopefully you can put him in as maybe even a guard, a really tall guard if you have a taller quarterback, and let him just punish guys there. He can hold up against those bigger interior defensive linemen, but as a traditional tackle prospect, I'm not the biggest fan. These guys, I've seen a lot of buzz around them as higher up than this, but I'm not that big on them. Luke Godke, the other tackle from Central Michigan, opposite Bernhard Raymond. Pretty sure he was I can't remember if Raymond was the right tackle or if he was the right tackle. So Godke was the right tackle. I think people are projecting him inside to guard a lot. I can see that. He's a decent mover enough at tackle that I think he could stay outside at the NFL level. I just don't think he has the power or the overall length to really get it done. It's weird because he doesn't have the length of a tackle, nor like the great movement skills of a tackle. But he also doesn't have these elite like anchor or elite like I said, power. Like, he has some power, good for an outside offensive tackle, but for an inside interior blocker, not the best. His movement for an outside offensive tackle, not the best. But like I said, he doesn't have the power for the guard. He doesn't have the length for an outside offensive tackle, but he has like the tenacity for a guard. It's a weird fit. He's going to be like this, probably a swing tackle, jack of all trades guy. Not going to be able to really find a home at either position, but you can probably pick one and just try to live with it if you need to in a pinch. But I don't think he's a consistent starter, so I have him as a round 6 kind of guy, a versatile backup kind of piece. Same with Zach Tom. Zach Tom, I actually kind of like him more than Luke Godke, but I think Luke Godke is a more natural fit at tackle than Tom is. Tom played center, guard, tackle at Wake Forest. You can project him anywhere on those 3 positions, and I think you'd be fine. I think the same thing with Godeke. His length isn't that great for a tackle. He doesn't have a great anchor even when he's outside against these lighter weight kind of defensive players. And I think he's just overall not a very, grind you into the ground kind of blocker. Lacks power, lacks that tenacity to be like a power run blocker kind of guy. I think he's got really good movement, especially trying to reach guys and things like that, or going up to the next level. But like I said, he's going to be more of that versatile backup kind of guy. You can play all three positions in a pinch, kind of like a Ryan Bates. If you're a Bills fan, you know who Ryan Bates is. But Ryan Bates is kind of, and you can see a process of how like Ryan Bates has now become like a right guard kind of a guy who's going to be starting next year probably. So I think Zach Tom, if he's allowed to be a backup for like 3-4 years and develop some more pieces or change his body composition, he could be a better interior blocker than exterior. But right now, I think he fits best at offensive tackle day one in the league, and will probably have to move inside once teams get a hand on them and want to mold them into that kind of thing. Tyler Vrabel, son of what's his name? That's his name. I'm blanking on that too. I'm blanking on everything today. Coach of the Tennessee Titans. I think he's probably going to go there just because I'm not the biggest fan of Vrabel. He was injured a lot, and I think as a technician, his feet and hands were kind of meh. I know his anchor was awful. I know it. So his foot technique is decent. You can notice he's a son of a coach, and he went to Boston College. His hand technique for maintaining inside leverage is good, but it doesn't really help him with his anchor, because usually when you have the inside leverage, you can get the power and keep that base, but not so much for him. He gets bowled over by a lot of guys. He's not the best mover, so maybe he could be better at offensive guard if he can, get that anchor figured out. He's not the most powerful, like I said, against these outside lighter weight defenders, so again, move to guard might be a little meh. He brings his father's tenacity, I'll give you that, and he's got some decent length. He's got the offensive tackle size. I just think he's very limited, and I'm not going to draft him. He's had some injury concerns as well while he was at Boston College, so not the biggest fan of him. Dare Rosenthal, total opposite. Ceiling, sky's the limit. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he had some attitude problems at LSU, which had him kicked over to Kentucky. I think he's probably the best athlete at tackle in this class, whether it's getting the get off or moving side to side, things like that, getting to the next level. But his technique needs some work. Like I said, there's some attitude concerns there. So, if you want to grab him and stash him on your 8th, 9th tackle or 8th, 9th lineman and just try to mold those really high traits and athletic abilities into something you could use, I don't see a problem with that. But right now, I think he's kind of a guy who really needs to sit for like 3-4 seasons before he's going to be able to be a starter at the next level. And Luke Tenuta, I'm just not a fan. Not a big fan. He's got the lowest grade overall of any player I've looked at. He's too high cut, he's too high cut, which doesn't help with his frame, which negatively impacts his power and his anchor. He doesn't have good get off. His length is good, but like his hand technique is awful. His foot technique is awful. Probably a great guy, but as a football player, I wouldn't touch him. So those are my 21 offensive tackles. Try to get through them as fast as I possibly could. But yeah, if I missed out on one of your favorite prospects, I'm still doing these. So follow me on Twitter, and I'll be tweeting about any other tackles I get to the rest of the season. So outside of that, I have to do guards and all these other positions. So I will be getting to that while you guys are watching this. So see you guys later.